Imagine standing in a dimly lit museum, your eyes locked onto an ancient artifact, a relic carved with symbols so strange they seem to whisper secrets from a forgotten world. These markings weren't meant for decoration. They were left behind as puzzles, waiting for someone to crack their code. Across the globe, from the deserts of Egypt to the jungles of South America, artifacts bear mysterious inscriptions that defy explanation. Some look like random scratches, others like elaborate diagrams, but all of them share one thing in common. They've stumped historians, archaeologists, and codebreakers for centuries. What if these strange markings aren't just random etchings? What if they're messages, clues left behind by ancient civilizations, hiding truths about their beliefs, their knowledge, or even warnings for the future? Today, we're diving into 30 of the most baffling symbols ever found on ancient artifacts. These aren't your typical hieroglyphs or well-documented scripts. These are the outliers, the enigmas that refuse to give up their secrets. Some have been theorized to map celestial events, others to encode lost languages, and a few might even point to technologies we can't yet comprehend. This isn't just a history lesson, it's a detective story, a journey through time where every symbol is a piece of evidence and every theory leads us deeper into the unknown. From the eerie spirals carved into Neolithic stones to the cryptic symbols hidden inside Egyptian tombs, these markings challenge everything we think we know about the past. So, if you've ever wondered what secrets lie beneath the surface of ancient art, or why some mysteries refuse to be solved, you're in the right place. Strap in, because by the end of this, you'll never look at an ancient artifact the same way again. The first artifact on our journey is the Phaistos Disc, a small clay disc discovered in the ruins of the Minoan palace of Phaistos on the Greek island of Crete. At first glance, it looks almost modern, like something you might find in a child's toy set, but this 4,000-year-old relic is anything but simple. Both sides are covered with 241 tiny symbols, pressed into the clay in a tight, spiraling pattern that coils inward like a labyrinth. And here's what makes it truly baffling: no one has ever cracked its code. These aren't just random squiggles. The symbols are crisp, deliberate, everything from human figures and animals to abstract shapes like spirals and axes. They look like a language, but not one we've ever seen before. Unlike Egyptian hieroglyphs or Mesopotamian cuneiform, which were eventually decoded using bilingual texts, the Phaistos Disc stands alone. There are no duplicates, no translations, no Rosetta Stone to help us break its secrets. So what could it be? Some researchers believe it's a religious hymn, a sacred text meant to be read aloud during ceremonies. Others argue it's a practical document, maybe a calendar tracking lunar cycles, or even an ancient board game with rules lost to time. One particularly bold theory suggests it's a form of early printing, predating movable type by millennia. But without more examples of this script, every guess remains just that, a guess. The disc's mystery only deepens when you consider where it was found. The Minoans were master traders and sailors, their influence stretching across the Mediterranean. If this writing system was so important, why haven't we found more of it? Was it a secret code known only to a select few, or is it a lone survivor of a lost tradition, its siblings crumbled to dust? Whatever the truth, the Phaistos Disc refuses to give up its secrets. It sits in silence, a riddle wrapped in clay, daring us to listen. And as we move to our next artifact, remember this: sometimes the most enduring mysteries aren't hidden in plain sight, they're stamped in spirals, waiting for the right mind to untangle them. From the spiraling symbols of the Phaistos Disc, we travel across the globe to one of the most remote places on Earth, Easter Island. Here, among the iconic stone giants known as the Moai, lies another unsolved puzzle, the Rongorongo script. Carved into wooden tablets, these intricate glyphs depict human figures, animals, and plants, all woven into lines that twist and flow like vines. Yet despite over a century of study, no one alive today can read them. What makes Rongorongo so frustrating for scholars is how close we came to understanding it, and how suddenly that chance slipped away. When European missionaries arrived on Easter Island in the 1800s, they found a handful of islanders who claimed to decipher the tablets. But within decades, disease and forced labor decimated the population, taking the last fluent readers to their graves. Now, all that remains are 26 surviving tablets, their messages frozen in time. The glyphs themselves are unlike any other writing system. Some appear to show birdmen with elongated beaks, others fish with scales meticulously etched, and a few even resemble the island's famous moai statues. They're arranged in a pattern called reverse baustrophedon, a fancy term meaning the line's alternate direction, like a plow turning at the end of a field. But here's the twist: every other line is upside down. Was this a stylistic choice, or did it hold some deeper meaning? Attempts to decode Rongorongo have led to wild theories. One linguist proposed it wasn't writing at all, but a memory aid for chants, a kind of cheat sheet for oral traditions. Another suggested it recorded genealogy, tracing the lineage of chiefs. The most tantalizing idea, that the tablets tell the story of the island's ecological collapse, warning of the deforestation that doomed their society. But perhaps the biggest mystery isn't just what Rongorongo says, it's why it existed in the first place. Easter Island was isolated, thousands of miles from the nearest civilization. How did writing develop there independently, or did it? Some researchers point to faint similarities between Rongorongo and ancient scripts from Peru, hinting at a lost connection across the Pacific. Others argue it's pure coincidence, a case of humans inventing symbols in parallel. One thing's certain: these wooden tablets weren't meant to be overlooked. They were polished with shark skin, preserved with care, and some even had holes drilled for hanging, as if they were displayed for all to see. Yet today they're silent. The moai statues may guard the island's shores, but Rongorongo guards its secrets just as fiercely. And as we turn to our next artifact, remember, sometimes the most haunting mysteries aren't carved in stone, but in wood, waiting for the day someone finally hears their whispers. Now we journey to the banks of the Indus River, where 5,000 years ago, a sophisticated civilization flourished only to vanish without leaving behind the keys to its written language. Among their most enduring relics are the Indus Valley seals, palm-sized squares of soapstone carved with exquisite precision. These aren't just artifacts, they're miniature masterpieces, each one featuring a single animal: bulls, elephants, tigers, and one recurring mystery, a creature that looks like a unicorn standing proud with a curved horn. But the real enigma lies in the clusters of symbols etched above these animals, a script so compact it fits in the space of a postage stamp. For decades, linguists have tried and failed to crack this code. Unlike Egyptian hieroglyphs or Mesopotamian cuneiform, the Indus script refuses to yield. It's not for lack of trying. Over 400 distinct symbols have been catalogued, some resembling humans, fish, even insects, arranged in short bursts of 4 or 5 characters. The brevity is part of the problem. With no lengthy texts to compare, no bilingual inscriptions, the symbols remain a linguistic dead end. Some argue it's not writing at all, but a system of clan markers or religious sigils. Others point to patterns suggesting syntax evidence this was a full-fledged language, now silenced by time. The seals weren't just decorative. Press them into clay, and they leave behind raised impressions like ancient trademarks. Archaeologists find these clay tags attached to bundles of goods, hinting at their role in a vast trade network. The Indus Valley civilization stretched from present-day Pakistan to India, their merchants exchanging textiles, pottery, and precious stones with Mesopotamia and beyond. Those unicorn symbols, they might have been a brand, a way to certify a product's origin or quality. But here's the twist: if these seals were just practical tools, why carve them with such care? The level of detail is staggering. Every feather on a bird, every muscle on the unicorn's neck, rendered with almost obsessive precision. One theory suggests they doubled as amulets, their symbols carrying hidden power. Another proposes they recorded myths, with each animal representing a deity. The truth might be even stranger. Recent computer analysis shows statistical patterns in the script similar to spoken languages, reigniting hope that one day we'll hear these voices from the past. What's haunting is how abruptly the Indus civilization collapsed. By 1800 BCE, their cities were abandoned, their scripts forgotten. Were they wiped out by invaders, or did climate change unravel their society? The seals don't say. They sit in museum cases, their unicorns eternally poised, their symbols whispering just beyond our understanding. And as we move to our next artifact, consider this. Sometimes the smallest objects hold the biggest secrets, their messages pressed into clay, waiting for the right hands to unfold them. Leaving behind the silent symbols of the Indus Valley, we arrive at a manuscript so baffling, it makes other unsolved codes look like child's play. Meet the Voynich Manuscript, a 200-page book penned in the 15th century, filled with illustrations of plants that don't exist, women bathing in green liquid, and celestial charts mapping unknown constellations. But the real showstopper, its text. Flowing across each page in neat, cursive lines is an alphabet no one recognizes, a script that's resisted every attempt at translation for over 600 years. This isn't just some scribbled notebook. The manuscript is a work of art, its pages made of fine vellum, its ink rich and deliberate. Carbon dating places its creation between 1404 and 1438, likely in northern Italy. Yet despite its European origins, nothing about it fits the era. The plants defy botany, with leaves and roots twisted into impossible shapes. The zodiac diagrams include unfamiliar signs, like a cluster of stars arranged in a spiral. And then there are those bathing women connected by intricate tubes and pools, as if part of some alchemical experiment lost to history. Theories about its purpose range from the plausible to the downright bizarre. Some scholars insist it's a medical text, its strange plants representing herbal remedies. Others see it as an early attempt at a scientific encyclopedia, blending astronomy, biology, and metaphysics. Then there are the wilder guesses, a secret alchemist's handbook, a coded message from another dimension, even an extraterrestrial dictionary left behind by visitors. The hoax theory lingers too. Could it be an elaborate Renaissance prank designed to fool wealthy collectors? But here's what chills linguists: the text follows linguistic patterns. Words repeat in ways that suggest grammar. Certain symbols appear only at the start of lines, like capital letters. In 2012, a study claimed to identify a handful of Hebrew words hidden in the script, but the lead researcher later admitted the findings were shaky. Then came artificial intelligence. In 2018, a team trained an AI on hundreds of languages, hoping it would spot a match. The result, a tentative link to Old Turkish, but even that theory crumbled under scrutiny. The Voynich Manuscript's greatest trick might be its ability to keep us guessing. Every breakthrough dissolves into doubt, every theory meets a dead end. Its pages hum with the frustration of scholars who have spent lifetimes staring at symbols that refuse to speak. And as we turn to our next artifact, remember this: some mysteries aren't meant to be solved. They're mirrors reflecting back our own hunger for answers, and the tantalizing possibility that some secrets are meant to stay secret. High above the scorched plains of southern Peru, an ancient canvas stretches across 450 square miles of desert, a gallery so vast its full designs only reveal themselves from the sky. These are the Nazca lines, enormous geoglyphs etched into the earth between 500 BCE and 500 CE. Some form precise geometric shapes, trapezoids stretching half a mile, triangles pointing toward distant mountains, spirals coiling like celestial fingerprints. But the most mesmerizing are the animal figures: a hummingbird with wings outstretched, a spider with one leg curling into a perfect spiral, a monkey with an intricately coiled tail. Each one drawn with a single, unbroken line, as if the artist never lifted their hand. The sheer scale of these creations defies logic. How did the Nazca people, without aerial views or modern tools, plot these designs with such mathematical precision? The answer lies in their technique. By removing the dark, iron-rich stones covering the desert floor, they exposed the lighter sand beneath, creating lines that endure for millennia. Simple tools, wooden stakes and ropes allowed them to scale up small models into colossal figures, but the real genius was in the desert itself. The Nazca Plateau is one of the driest places on Earth, with winds so calm that the lines remain undisturbed for centuries. Why go to such lengths? Mainstream archaeology points to celestial alignments. The spider may mirror the constellation Orion, while the hummingbird's beak aligns with the solstice sunrise, a celestial calendar etched into the earth. Water rituals are another theory. The monkey and the spider are both associated with rain in Andean mythology, and some lines lead to underground aquifers. But then there are the fringe theories. In the 1960s, a Swiss author proposed the lines were ancient runways for extraterrestrial visitors, sparking decades of speculation. Others suggest they were ritual paths walked by shamans in trance states to commune with spirits. The truth might be a tapestry of all these ideas. The Nazca were master hydrologists carving channels to survive the desert. Could their geoglyphs have been offerings to deities who controlled the rains, or maps of hidden water sources visible only to initiates? One haunting detail supports this. During rare desert rains, water flows along the lines, bringing the figures to life as shimmering rivers. Today, the Nazca lines face modern threats: illegal mining, encroaching roads, even climate change altering wind patterns. Their survival hinges on a delicate balance, much like the civilization that created them. And as we shift our gaze to the next artifact, consider this. Sometimes the greatest mysteries aren't hidden in darkness, but sprawled beneath the open sky, waiting for us to see them from the right angle. Deep in the heart of Romania, buried beneath the layers of time, a set of clay tablets challenges everything we thought we knew about the dawn of writing. The Tartaria Tablets, discovered in 1961, are small, no larger than a palm, but their implications are colossal. Etched with symbols resembling animals, crosses, and jagged lines, these markings date back to around 5,300 BCE, a staggering 2 millennia older than the earliest Sumerian cuneiform. If genuine, they could rewrite history, proving that writing didn't emerge in Mesopotamia first, but in the shadows of the Carpathian Mountains. The controversy begins with the symbols themselves. Unlike the orderly rows of cuneiform or hieroglyphs, these markings feel primal, almost chaotic. Some depict horned animals, possibly bulls or goats, while others are abstract zigzags, grids, and a symbol eerily reminiscent of a stick figure man with arms raised. What's striking is their resemblance to later writing systems. One symbol looks like a rudimentary version of the Sumerian sign for grain, while another mirrors early Cretan hieroglyphs. Could these tablets be a missing link, a blueprint for scripts that would emerge thousands of years later? But not everyone's convinced. Skeptics point to the lack of context. The tablets were found near a hearth, alongside charred bones and a clay figurine, hardly the setting of a royal archive. Some argue the symbols are mere decorations, or worse, an elaborate hoax. The lead archaeologist, Nicolae Vlasa, initially suggested the tablets were used in rituals, their symbols acting as a proto-writing system for sacred ceremonies. Yet without more examples, it's like trying to decipher a language from a single sentence. The academic world is split. One camp sees the Tartaria Tablets as proof of a sophisticated Vinca culture, a civilization advanced enough to develop writing independently. Others dismiss them as scribbles, a cultural dead end with no connection to later scripts. The debate turns fierce when radiocarbon dating enters the picture. While the tablets themselves can't be dated directly, nearby organic material places them firmly in the 6th millennium BCE. That timeline is explosive, older than any known writing, predating even the wheel in some regions. Then there's the eerie coincidence of location. The Vinca culture thrived along the Danube, a crossroads of ancient trade. Could traders have carried these symbols westward, seeding the alphabets of the Mediterranean? Or were they a local innovation, lost when the Vinca vanished mysteriously around 4000 BCE? The tablets offer no answers, only symbols that stare back, silent and stubborn. What's undeniable is their power to ignite imagination. If these markings are writing, they hint at a world far more interconnected and far older than we ever suspected. But until another discovery unlocks their meaning, the Tartaria Tablets remain a riddle wrapped in clay, their symbols whispering of a time before history began. The waters of Lake Castoria in northern Greece hide more than just fish. They conceal one of the oldest linguistic puzzles ever discovered. In 1992, archaeologists excavating a Neolithic lakeside village pulled a waterlogged wooden slab from the mud, its surface etched with symbols so ancient they predate even the pyramids of Egypt. This is the Decipher tablet, carbon dated to around 5000 BCE, and its markings might just rewrite the story of writing itself. What makes this tablet extraordinary isn't just its age, it's the eerie familiarity of its symbols. The carvings include branching lines resembling trees, zigzags that could represent water or lightning, and a sequence of angular marks that look startlingly like early Greek letters. Some scholars see echoes of Linear B, the script used by Mycenaean Greeks 3,000 years later. Could these scribbles be a distant ancestor of Europe's first true writing system? Or are they something else entirely, a personal notation, a ritual object, or even a Neolithic child's first attempt at drawing meaning? The Decipher site was no temporary camp. It was a thriving village of stilt houses, home to farmers, potters, and toolmakers. The tablet was found among wooden tools and ceramic fragments, suggesting it wasn't a one-off experiment. Yet, unlike the prolific cuneiform tablets of Mesopotamia, Decipher's markings stand alone. No other examples have been found, leaving us with a frustrating question. Was this a fluke or proof of a wider, lost tradition? Mainstream archaeology remains cautious. Without more tablets, it's impossible to confirm whether these symbols functioned as true writing, a system capable of recording complex speech, or served as simple property marks or ritual symbols. But the implications are tantalizing. If the markings are proto-writing, they push back the origins of European symbolic communication by millennia. Even more provocative is their location. The Decipher symbols predate Sumerian cuneiform by over 1,000 years, challenging the long-held assumption that writing began in the Middle East and spread outward. Could writing have sprung up independently in multiple places, only for some versions to vanish without a trace? Then there's the material itself. Wood rarely survives from prehistoric sites, making the tablet's preservation a minor miracle. The symbols were carved when the wood was green, then preserved by the lake's oxygen-deprived mud. But this also means we'll never know how many similar tablets rotted away, their messages lost to time. The Decipher tablet forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth. History isn't a straight line. It's a tangled web of dead ends and forgotten innovations. What seems like the first discovery might simply be the one that survived. As we turn to our next artifact, remember, sometimes the most revolutionary clues aren't carved in stone, but in wood, fragile, fleeting, and waiting for the right moment to surface. Carved into a slab of serpentine rock weighing nearly 26 pounds, the cascadal block presents a puzzle that could reshape our understanding of Mesoamerica's oldest civilization. Discovered in a quarry in the Mexican state of Veracruz in the late 1990s, this rectangular stone bears 62 intricate glyphs arranged in irregular rows, symbols that look nothing like the familiar scripts of the Maya or Aztecs. Instead, they belong to the Olmec, a culture so ancient, their cities rose and fell 1,000 years before Christ walked the earth, and these aren't just random scratches. The glyphs depict insects, maize plants, thrones, even a curious crosshatched pattern resembling a net, all carved with a fluidity that suggests a writing system already mature, not experimental. What makes the Cascadal block revolutionary is its age. Dating to around 900 BCE, it's the oldest evidence of writing in the Americas, predating the earliest Mayan inscriptions by at least 4 centuries. But here's the real shocker: some symbols bear uncanny resemblances to later Mayan glyphs. Take the maize plant, a staple of Mesoamerican life. On the Cascadal block, it's rendered with the same stylized leaves seen in classic Maya art. Another glyph mirrors the Mayan symbol for day, hinting at a shared cosmological vocabulary. This isn't just coincidence, it's cultural DNA, proof that the Olmec didn't just build colossal stone heads, they may have laid the foundation for every script that followed in the region. Yet the block's context is as tantalizing as its symbols. It was found amid broken pottery and ritual objects, suggesting it wasn't administrative like Sumerian tablets recording grain taxes but sacred. One theory posits it's a dedicatory text honoring a ruler or deity. Another interprets the glyphs as a ritual calendar tracking sacred cycles, the most provocative idea. That it's a fragment of a larger literary tradition, most of which was written on perishable materials like bark or animal skins, now lost to jungle humidity. Critics initially dismissed the block as a fake, its symbols too neat for something so ancient, but microscopic analysis silenced doubters. Tool marks show the glyphs were carved in one sitting, their edges worn by centuries of handling. Even more telling, the stone's surface bears traces of red pigment, suggesting it was once painted for display. This wasn't a discarded draft, it was a prized object perhaps passed down through generations. The Olmec's influence on later cultures is undeniable. They pioneered the ball game, built the first pyramids, and now with the Cascadal block, they may have given Mesoamerica its written word. But the stone refuses to give up its full story. Without a bilingual inscription or more examples of Olmec writing, its glyphs remain mute witnesses to a civilization that shaped a continent, then vanished into the mist, leaving only echoes in the scripts of those who came after. Tucked away in a remote Bulgarian cave, a series of jagged markings slice across the rock face like frozen lightning. The Satovo inscription. Discovered in 1928, these angular symbols have fueled debates for nearly a century. Some look like rudimentary letters, others like abstract slashes or stick figures caught mid-dance. But what sets them apart is their eerie resemblance to ancient runes, despite being carved thousands of miles from Scandinavia. Theories about their origin swing wildly. Local archaeologists argue they're Thracian, a civilization known for goldsmithing and warrior cults but not writing. The Thracians left behind dazzling treasures, yet no definitive script. Could these carvings be their proto-writing, a system of symbols used in rituals rather than record-keeping? One symbol recurs like a signature, a zigzag crowned with a circle echoing Thracian sun motifs found on ceremonial armor. Another resembles a double-bladed axe sacred to their pantheon. Then there's the cipher theory. In the 1970s, a mathematician claimed the inscription was a medieval cryptogram, pointing to similarities with Glagolitic, the alphabet used by early Slavic monks. His decryption attempt yielded a fragmented message about a hidden treasure, but skeptics dismissed it as coincidence. The cave's location adds intrigue. It's perched near a Roman road, a crossroads of empires where languages collided. Could the markings be a traveler's graffiti, a merchant's code, or even a boundary marker for some long-lost kingdom? The most haunting possibility that the symbols aren't human at all. Local folklore whispers of the Samadivi, wild nymphs who danced in mountain caves, leaving scratches on walls as they passed. Modern eyes might dismiss this as superstition, but consider this. The symbols cluster near natural fissures in the rock, places where water once seeped through. To a prehistoric mind, these cracks could have been portals to the underworld, and the carvings offerings to whatever lurked beyond. Unlike the Rosetta Stone or the Phaistos Disc, the Setovo inscription lacks context. No artifacts were found nearby, no pottery shards or tools to anchor it in time. Carbon dating is impossible. The symbols are etched too shallowly to collect organic residue. They exist in a vacuum, untethered to any era. Perhaps that's their power. They refuse categorization, slipping between the cracks of history like shadows. Whether they're a warrior's prayer, a monk's riddle, or something far older, one thing's certain. In the dim glow of a flashlight, those carvings still feel alive, waiting for the day someone cracks their code. Imagine uncovering a relic so ancient, it rewrites the very definition of writing itself. Buried in the fertile plains of China's Henan province, archaeologists unearthed something extraordinary: turtle shells dating back nearly 9,000 years, each one etched with cryptic symbols that predate the earliest known Chinese characters by millennia. These are the Jiahu symbols discovered among the ruins of a Neolithic village, and they might just hold the key to understanding how humans first transformed thought into permanent marks. The shells themselves are humble artifacts, some barely larger than a hand, but their markings crackle with intention: simple lines, crosses, and shapes resembling eyes or sunbursts, carved with sharp tools into the hard surface. At first glance, they look like random scratches, the kind a child might make, but their arrangement tells a different story. Some symbols repeat in sequences, clustered in ways that suggest deliberate patterns. Others appear alone, like signatures or warnings. This isn't doodling, it's proto-writing, a bridge between abstract thought and recorded language. What's staggering is their age. The Jiahu symbols were created around 7000 BCE, contemporary with the very dawn of agriculture in the region. These markings weren't etched by scribes in a royal court, but by Neolithic villagers who just begun domesticating rice and crafting the world's oldest fermented beverages. Found alongside bone flutes and burial offerings, the shells point to a ritual purpose. One theory suggests they were used in divination, heated until they cracked, with the symbols guiding shamans' interpretations. Another posits they served as early tallies, tracking lunar cycles or harvest yields. But here's the million-year-old question: are these actual writing? Scholars are divided. Some argue the symbols lack the complexity to encode language, serving instead as mnemonic devices, memory aids for oral traditions. Others see echoes of later Chinese scripts. One Jiahu symbol, a cross inside a circle, bears a striking resemblance to the ancient character for I, while another looks like a precursor to the modern numeral 8. Could these be the seeds of a writing system that would evolve into the elegant characters of the Shang dynasty? The controversy deepens when you consider the shells' context. They weren't scattered randomly but concentrated in elite burials, hinting at a privileged class of symbol users. Even more telling, some shells were drilled with holes, as if strung together like pages in a primitive book. Were these the first attempts at preserving knowledge or sacred objects meant to channel the spirit world? China isn't the only place where proto-writing emerged. The Vinca symbols of Europe and the Indus Valley seals show similar sparks of early symbolic communication. But the Jiahu markings stand apart. They're not just isolated doodles, they're part of a cultural explosion, a moment when humans began to externalize thought in ways that would eventually birth literature, law, and history. And then, just as mysteriously as they appeared, the Jiahu symbols vanish. For 3,000 years, no further writing emerges in China until the abrupt arrival of the Shang oracle bones, their characters suddenly sophisticated and mature. What happened in that gap? Were the Jiahu symbols a false start, a dead end in the story of writing? Or is the truth still buried, waiting for another discovery to connect the dots? The turtle shells don't say. They lie silent in museum cases, their markings worn smooth by time, their messages hovering just beyond our grasp. but in their stubborn silence they whisper something profound. Writing didn't arrive fully formed. It began as a flicker, a handful of marks on a shell daring someone somewhere to understand. Hidden in a private collection in Bolivia for decades, the Fuente Magna Bowl emerges as one of the most perplexing artifacts ever found in the Americas. This ceramic vessel, roughly the size of a large fruit bowl, is etched with markings that shouldn't exist not here, not 5,000 miles from Mesopotamia. The symbols coiled around its interior aren't just decorative. They bear an uncanny resemblance to Proto-Sumerian cuneiform, the wedge-shaped script of ancient Iraq. How could a script from the dawn of civilization wind up on a bowl buried in the Andean highlands? The bowl's discovery reads like an archaeological thriller. In the 1950s, a local farmer stumbled upon it near Lake Titicaca, a region steeped in Inca and Tiwanaku history. For years, it gathered dust in La Paz Museum, labeled as a curiosity until a sharp-eyed researcher noticed the markings weren't abstract designs. They looked eerily like early Mesopotamian signs for gods, water, and king. Suddenly, the bowl wasn't just an artifact, it was a riddle wrapped in clay demanding answers. The implications are staggering. Sumer flourished around 4000 BCE, while the Tiwanaku culture rose millennia later. If the bowl is genuine, it suggests transoceanic contact thousands of years before Columbus, a theory that splits academia like an axe. Supporters point to the bowl's material, local clay, but with a composition matching Lake Titicaca's sediments, the symbols themselves too precise for coincidence. One sequence mirrors a Sumerian votive inscription, a prayer to the goddess Nisaba for bountiful harvests. Could Sumerian explorers or traders have crossed the Pacific, leaving behind this linguistic breadcrumb? But skeptics wield sharp objections. No other Sumerian artifacts have been found in the Americas. The bowl's cuneiform lacks the stylistic evolution seen in Mesopotamia, as if frozen in time. Worse, its provenance is murky. No official excavation records exist. Some linguists argue the markings are pseudo-writing, accidental scratches amplified by wishful thinking. One controversial study even claimed the bowl was a 19th century hoax, crafted after cuneiform became known in Europe, yet the bowl refuses to be dismissed. Recent imaging techniques reveal tool marks consistent with ancient engraving methods, not modern forgeries. And then there's the unsettling fact that Lake Titicaca's shores hold other anomalies like the Andean cross, a symbol echoing Mesopotamian solar wheels. Coincidence or evidence of a connection we've yet to fully comprehend. The Fuente Magna Bowl stands at the crossroads of two worlds, its inscriptions whispering of impossible journeys. Whether it's proof of pre-Columbian globalization or an elaborate misunderstanding, one thing's clear: some artifacts don't just challenge history, they dare us to rewrite it. Hidden in the rolling countryside of Staffordshire, England, the Shugborough Hall estate holds a peculiar monument that's baffled codebreakers for centuries. Known as the Shepherd's Monument, this 18th century marble relief depicts a pastoral scene, three shepherds pointing toward a tomb inscribed with the Latin phrase, et in Arcadia ego, meaning, even in Arcadia I am. But it's what lies beneath the carving that's ignited endless speculation. A sequence of 10 letters carved with deliberate precision, OUOSVAVV framed between two mysterious Ds. At first glance, the inscription seems like a random jumble, but its placement suggests something far more calculated. Flanking the letters are two stone tablets, their surfaces blank, as if waiting for a key to unlock their meaning. Theories about the code range from scholarly to outlandish. Some believe it's a cipher left by the Knights Templar, hinting at the location of the Holy Grail. After all, the monument's Arcadian imagery mirrors descriptions in Grail lore. Others argue it's a biblical reference, pointing to passages like Psalms or cryptic verses in Revelation. Even literary giants couldn't resist the puzzle. Charles Dickens reportedly spent nights agonizing over the letters, convinced they held a secret worth uncovering. One of the most compelling theories ties the code to the Anson family, who owned Shugborough Hall. Admiral George Anson, a famed naval commander, once circumnavigated the globe, sparking whispers that the letters might map a hidden treasure route. Another angle suggests they're an acrostic, with each letter standing for the first word of a poetic verse, perhaps a love letter from George's brother, Thomas, to his forbidden wife, Lady Elizabeth. The two Ds, some say they stand for Duchess and Devonshire, nods to Elizabeth's aristocratic ties, yet for every plausible explanation there's a wild card. In the 1980s, a researcher claimed the letters corresponded to the positions of Jupiter's moons on a specific date, linking them to alchemical symbolism. More recently, codebreakers from Britain's GCHQ, the equivalent of the NSA, applied wartime decryption techniques only to walk away empty-handed. The closest anyone's come, a tentative link to a Greek phrase meaning Jesus as Savior, but even that feels like grasping at straws. What makes the Shugborough inscription so maddening is its elegant simplicity. Unlike the Voynich Manuscript's alien alphabet or Rongorongo's intricate glyphs, this code uses familiar letters, taunting us with their ordinariness. It's a riddle wrapped in marble, sitting in plain sight for anyone to solve, and perhaps that's the point, not to conceal but to challenge. After all, the best mysteries aren't those buried in darkness, but the ones we walk past every day whispering, "Look closer." Rising from the red clay of rural Georgia like a modern-day Stonehenge, the Georgia Guidestone stood as one of the most baffling monuments of the 20th century. Erected in 1980, these 20-foot-tall granite slabs bore 10 commandments etched in 8 languages, a survival guide for humanity after collapse. But unlike ancient artifacts shrouded in the fog of time, this mystery came with a return address, a small plaque crediting its creation to someone or some group using the pseudonym R.C. Christian. The guidelines themselves read like a dystopian manifesto. The first instruction: maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. Others called for governing reproduction wisely, unifying humanity under a new global language, and balancing personal rights with social duties. At the top, a slit aligned with the sun during solstices and equinoxes, suggesting the stones doubled as a celestial calendar. But who would go to such lengths, and why? Speculation ran wild. Some believed R.C. Christian was a shadowy elite preparing for societal collapse. The monument's precision fueled conspiracy theories. The granite came from Elberton, known as the granite capital of the world. Yet local workers recalled an elderly man paying in cash, leaving no paper trail. Others saw the stones as a well-intentioned environmental warning. The reference to 500 million matched 21st century predictions of Earth's sustainable carrying capacity. Then came the explosions. In 2022, just as the Guidestones gained viral notoriety, a bomb partially demolished the structure. Authorities dismantled the remnants days later, citing safety concerns. The timing raised eyebrows. Had someone silenced the monument's message? Or was its destruction symbolic, a rejection of its controversial vision? Unlike ancient relics eroded by time, the Guidestones were deliberately erased, their fragments hauled away before researchers could fully study them. All that remains are photos and whispered debates. Were they a blueprint for utopia or a warning against tyranny? The stone's final commandment lingers like a ghost: be not a cancer on the earth. A plea echoing through the ages, from the first cave paintings to this modern monolith, proof that even in our digital era, some still carve their warnings in stone. Deep in the archives of Hungary's Academy of Sciences lies a book that defies logic, the Rohonc Codex. Discovered in the 19th century, this leather-bound manuscript contains 200 pages of dense, handwritten symbols unlike any known alphabet. Curved lines twist into loops, jagged strokes resemble weaponry, and clusters of dots dance between rows as if the text itself is alive, but the real enigma. The illustrations scattered throughout, crucifixions alongside pagan sun gods, battle scenes with soldiers wielding weapons from different eras, and maps of lands that don't match any known geography. It's as if the codex was assembled from fragments of lost worlds. From the moment it surfaced, the manuscript divided experts. Some declared it a medieval hoax, pointing to its jumbled imagery like a forger's cut-and-paste experiment. Others saw method in the madness. The symbols repeat in patterns suggesting grammar, with certain characters appearing only at the start of sentences, much like capital letters. Even more intriguing, statistical analysis reveals word frequencies matching natural languages. So why can't anyone read it? Theories spiral as wildly as the codex's own script. One camp argues it's a religious text from the Dacians, an ancient people who resisted Roman conquest. Their language remains largely unrecorded, and the codex's mix of Christian and pagan imagery could reflect a transitional faith. Another hypothesis ties it to the Shaklis, a Hungarian ethnic group with a legendary runic script, except no surviving examples match these symbols. Then there's the cipher theory. Renaissance nobles loved creating coded manuscripts to flaunt their intellect. Could this be a vanity project, its meaning known only to its creator? But the boldest claim comes from a team of linguists who, in 2019, proposed a radical idea. The codex isn't pure writing at all. It might be a form of semasiography, where symbols convey ideas directly without representing speech. Think emojis woven into a narrative. This could explain why translations fail. The text wasn't meant to be read traditionally. Instead, it might function like a medieval graphic novel, its images and symbols working in tandem to tell a story visually. The illustrations deepen the puzzle. One page depicts a battle with soldiers wearing helmets from 3 different centuries. Another shows a tree with roots coiled around a sword, an allegory found in Norse sagas and Slavic folklore alike. The most haunting image, a figure hanging from a T-shaped cross under a crescent moon, surrounded by spectators in turbans and medieval armor. Is this a lost gospel, a heretical text, or a fictional tale blending cultures? Technology has only amplified the mystery. A 2017 eye analysis attempted to link the script to 800 known languages. The result? A faint similarity to Old Hungarian, but also to Brahmi, an ancient Indian script. The statistical overlap was just strong enough to tease researchers, not solve the riddle. Even carbon dating offers contradictions. While the vellum suggests the 16th century, the ink contains pigments used centuries earlier. What's clear is that the Rohonc Codex refuses categorization. It's a linguistic chameleon, shifting its identity with every new theory. Perhaps that's its purpose, not to be solved, but to remind us how much we've yet to understand about the tangled web of human communication. Some books don't just contain secrets, they become them. Imagine a scroll so valuable, its owner believed it held the secret to turning lead into gold, and perhaps even eternal life. The Ripley Scrolls, named after the enigmatic 15th century alchemist George Ripley, are a labyrinth of cryptic illustrations and coded instructions, each stroke of ink guarding what medieval thinkers called the magnum opus, the great work of creating the philosopher's stone. Unlike the abstract symbols of the Voynich Manuscript or the rigid glyphs of ancient scripts, these scrolls are a riot of color and chaos. Dragons devouring their own tails, kings and queens dissolving into bubbling flasks, and celestial orbs casting light onto intricate chemical apparatuses. But beneath the artistry lies a language of deliberate obscurity, a visual code designed to reveal truths only to those deemed worthy. Alchemy wasn't just proto-chemistry, it was a spiritual quest, a fusion of science and mysticism where every symbol carried layers of meaning. Take the Ouroboros, the serpent eating its own tail. To an outsider, it might seem like a simple emblem of cycles, but to initiates, it represented the purification of matter through repeated dissolution and coagulation, a core step in creating the stone. Even the colors held secrets. A red lion symbolized the final stage of the process, when the elusive substance was said to glow with transformative power. But the scrolls never spell it out plainly. Instead, they speak in riddles: make the green dragon drink his bath, or wed the moon to the sun in a glass house. These weren't whimsical phrases, they were precise, if veiled, technical instructions. Why such secrecy? In an era when heresy trials loomed, alchemists walked a razor's edge. Claiming the power to transmute metals could be seen as challenging divine order, or worse, as counterfeiting, a crime punishable by execution. But there was another reason. Alchemy's adherents believed knowledge was corruptible. If the unworthy learned its secrets, they might misuse them for greed rather than enlightenment. So they buried truth in layers, letting only those with patience and intuition piece together the puzzle. Even Ripley himself, a canon of Bridlington Priory, wrote that his scrolls were like a mirror, clear only to those with eyes to see. Modern attempts to decode the scrolls reveal just how sophisticated their ciphers were. Some recipes, when translated into laboratory terms, describe real chemical processes: distillation, sublimation used to purify substances like mercury and sulfur. Other passages, though, remain stubbornly opaque. Take the recurring image of the hermetic androgyne, a figure both male and female. Is it a metaphor for the union of opposing elements, or a literal step requiring the mixing of specific reagents? Scholars still debate it. The greatest irony: the Ripley scrolls might have succeeded too well in their mission. Today, we can admire their artistry and speculate on their meaning, but the true depth of their secrets may have died with the alchemists who understood them. And perhaps that was the point all along. Like the philosopher's stone itself, the scrolls remain just out of reach, glittering with promise, yet dissolving into mist when examined too closely. Among the dusty ruins of Ubaid-era Mesopotamia, archaeologists uncovered something that defies conventional history: a collection of figurines with elongated heads, almond-shaped eyes, and unmistakably reptilian features. These 7,000-year-old artifacts, known as the Ubaid lizardmen, depict humanoid figures with slitted eyes and scaly skin, some cradling infants, others posed in what appears to be devotional gestures. The craftsmanship is deliberate, the details too precise to dismiss as artistic whimsy. So why would a Neolithic culture, millennia before the rise of Sumer, fashion beings that look less like gods and more like creatures from a sci-fi nightmare? One school of thought points to shamanism. Many indigenous traditions worldwide speak of shape-shifting rituals where spiritual leaders take on animal attributes to commune with other realms. The figurines' postures suggest reverence, perhaps representing shamans clad in ceremonial garb mimicking lizards, animals associated with regeneration due to their ability to shed skin. Mesopotamian myths later teem with serpentine deities like Ningish-Siddha, the Lord of the Good Tree, often depicted as a horned serpent. Could the Ubaid figurines be early prototypes of these beliefs, a visual language linking humans to reptilian symbols of wisdom and rebirth? Then there's the more controversial angle, the ancient astronaut theory. Proponents argue the figurines are evidence of extraterrestrial contact, citing their uncanny resemblance to modern, grey alien descriptions. The Ubaid culture lacked writing, leaving no textual clues, but their sudden advancements in irrigation and pottery raise eyebrows. Did an otherworldly influence accelerate their development? Mainstream archaeologists bristle at the idea, countering that the figurines likely represent stylized fertility symbols or clan totems. Yet the precision of the reptilian features, the pronounced shoulders, the tapered limbs, leaves little room for simple abstraction. The most haunting theory lies in the figurines' context. Many were found in graves nestled beside human remains. Some clutch infants with matching reptilian traits, as if documenting lineage. Could these be portraits of a forgotten people, or worse, a hybrid species lost to time? Genetic testing of Ubaid-era bones might hold answers, but for now, the figurines remain mute witnesses to a time when the line between myth and reality was far thinner than it is today. Perhaps the truth lies in the shadows between these theories. The Ubaid lizardmen don't just challenge our understanding of ancient art, they force us to confront how quickly we dismiss what doesn't fit our narrative. After all, in a world where chameleons change colors and snakes shed their skin, is it so strange that our ancestors saw magic or something beyond it in the shape of a lizard? On the sandstone walls of the Hathor Temple at Dendera, a series of peculiar carvings have ignited a debate that bridges archaeology and science fiction. These bas-reliefs, known as the Dendera lights, depict what appear to be enormous light bulbs, elongated tubes with snaking filaments inside, supported by pillars and tended by figures who seem to be adjusting their mechanisms. To the untrained eye, they look eerily like modern electrical devices, complete with cables and insulators. But are these truly depictions of ancient technology, or is there a more symbolic explanation hidden in the hieroglyphs? Mainstream Egyptologists have a clear answer. These aren't light bulbs at all, but symbolic representations of the lotus flower, a sacred plant in Egyptian mythology. The filament resembles the serpentiform stem of the lotus, while the bulb itself mirrors the flower's blossoming petals. In this interpretation, the scenes illustrate the cosmogony of creation. The lotus emerging from the primordial waters, its petals unfurling like the sun at dawn. The figures surrounding the bulbs aren't technicians, but priests performing rituals tied to Hathor, the goddess of sky and fertility. Even the so-called cables may represent the convoluted paths of the underworld through which the sun god Ra traveled each night. But the fringe theories refuse to fade. Engineers and alternative historians point to the precision of the carvings, noting how closely the bulbs resemble Crookes tubes, early experimental electrical devices from the 19th century. The Dendera reliefs even include what looks like an insulating base, a feature absent from traditional lotus symbolism. Could the ancient Egyptians have harnessed electricity, using primitive batteries like the Baghdad artifact to power illumination in their temples? Some theorists go further, suggesting the knowledge was lost or suppressed by later civilizations. The truth likely lies somewhere in between. While no physical evidence of Egyptian electrical technology has ever been found, the carvings do reflect something profound about their worldview. The Egyptians were masters of symbolic shorthand, using familiar objects to encode abstract ideas. A lotus wasn't just a flower, it was a map of the cosmos. A serpent wasn't merely an animal, but an embodiment of chaotic forces. So while the Dendera carvings might not depict literal light bulbs, they do shine a light on something equally fascinating: how a civilization without electricity still found ways to illustrate the spark of divine knowledge. What makes these carvings endure isn't just their mystery, but their flexibility. They invite us to question, to wonder, and to recognize that ancient art often speaks in layers, some meant for the eyes, others for the imagination. Whether you see sacred botany or forgotten science in those temple walls, one thing's certain: the past always holds more surprises than we expect. Deep in the sandstone valleys of New South Wales, Australia, two weathered walls bear carvings that shouldn't exist, hieroglyphs unmistakably Egyptian in style. Known as the Gosford glyphs, these inscriptions tell a story straight out of the Nile. Depictions of boats, Anubis, the god of the dead, and even the name of King Decipher, a 4th dynasty pharaoh. The problem: this isn't the banks of the Nile. It's a remote stretch of Australian bushland over 7,000 miles from Egypt, with no historical record of ancient Egyptian contact. So how did these symbols end up halfway across the world? And why do they continue to fuel such intense debate among historians and conspiracy theorists alike? At first glance, the glyphs seem eerily authentic. The characters mimic classical Egyptian script with familiar cartouches and divine icons. Some inscriptions appear to describe an expedition of sailors who perished in the land of kangaroos, while others reference Osirian burial rites. It's the kind of discovery that would rewrite history if it held up to scrutiny, but here's where the story unravels. The glyphs are carved into sandstone, a soft rock that erodes quickly in Australia's humid climate. Yet these inscriptions show almost no weathering, suggesting they're far younger than their claimed age of 4,000 years. Even more damning, the grammar and syntax are riddled with errors. Names of pharaohs are misspelled, godly epithets are jumbled, and some hieroglyphs are mirrored, mistakes no educated Egyptian scribe would make. So who created them? Local oral history points to a World War I veteran with a passion for Egyptology. In the 1920s, a returned soldier named Raymond Johnson reportedly studied hieroglyphs and spent years carving these panels as a hobby. The fact that the glyphs weren't documented before the 1970s adds weight to this theory. Yet despite the evidence, alternative history enthusiasts refuse to let the idea die. Some argue the glyphs are remnants of a lost Egyptian voyage, pointing to alleged artifacts like the Gympie Pyramid in Queensland or the Egyptian cave art near Cairns. Others propose even wilder theories: secret societies preserving ancient knowledge or pre-colonial global explorers whose records were suppressed. What makes this debate so enduring isn't just the carvings themselves, but what they represent: the human desire to connect distant cultures in ways that defy conventional timelines. The Gosford glyphs may be a modern hoax, but they tap into a deeper mystery. Why do we keep finding out-of-place artifacts that challenge our understanding of the past? Perhaps because history is never as simple as the textbooks suggest, and sometimes the most tantalizing enigmas aren't the ones carved in stone, but the stories we project onto them. Beneath the rolling farmlands of southern Illinois lies a cave that shouldn't exist, at least not according to mainstream archaeology. Known as Burroughs Cave, this underground chamber allegedly contained hundreds of stone tablets engraved with faces, symbols, and inscriptions that defy conventional history. The carvings depict everything from Roman soldiers to African royalty, from Christian crosses to Egyptian hieroglyphs, all jumbled together as if someone took a handful of ancient cultures and tossed them into a time blender. But here's where the story twists. The cave's discoverer, Russell Burroughs, refused to reveal its exact location, and the artifacts he produced sparked a firestorm of accusations, leaving scholars and enthusiasts locked in a battle over authenticity that still rages today. When Burroughs first publicized his discovery in the 1980s, the artifact seemed too extraordinary to believe. Some tablets showed figures in unmistakable Roman armor, their helmets and cloaks carved with startling detail. Others bore inscriptions in Libico-Berber script, a writing system used in North Africa over 2,000 years ago. Most baffling of all were the portraits kings and queens with distinctly African features, their headdresses resembling those of Nubian pharaohs. If genuine, these carvings would rewrite the history of pre-Columbian America, suggesting transatlantic contact centuries before Columbus, but skepticism flared immediately. Professional archaeologists noted glaring anachronisms, like Roman and Egyptian motifs appearing side by side, despite belonging to vastly different eras. The inscriptions, while superficially convincing, contained grammatical errors and stylistic inconsistencies no ancient scribe would make. The controversy deepened when Burroughs' story began to unravel. He claimed to have stumbled upon the cave while treasure hunting, yet he never allowed independent researchers to examine the site firsthand. When pressed, he produced increasingly outlandish tales of secret societies guarding the cave, of death threats from shadowy figures. Critics accused him of crafting the artifacts himself, possibly using historical references to lend them credibility. Even the tablet's material raised red flags. Instead of local stone, many were carved on slabs of slate not native to Illinois. To mainstream scholars, the conclusion was obvious: an elaborate hoax fueled by a mix of ambition and delusion. Yet the artifacts refuse to fade into obscurity. Fringe researchers argue that some carvings display techniques and patterns consistent with ancient weathering, suggesting they weren't freshly made. A handful of metallurgical tests on associated metal artifacts, reputedly found with the tablets, showed unusual alloys, though these findings were never peer-reviewed. More intriguing are the stylistic parallels to lesser-known artifacts, like the Bat Creek stone from Tennessee or the Los Lunas Decalogue in New Mexico, which also bear anomalous inscriptions. Could Burroughs have stumbled upon a genuine, if misunderstood, pre-Columbian cache, or did he exploit these fringe discoveries to lend his own forgeries an air of legitimacy? What makes Burroughs' cave so polarizing isn't just the question of fraud. It's what the controversy reveals about our hunger for rewritten history. The idea of Romans or Africans reaching America long before Europeans taps into a deeper narrative, one where the past is wilder and more interconnected than textbooks allow. And that's the enduring power of these enigmatic carvings. They force us to ask not just are they real, but why do we want them to be? Whether a hoax or a misunderstood legacy, the Burroughs Cave tablets hold up a mirror to our own fascination with the gaps in history's map and the stories we're willing to believe to fill them. In the quiet farmlands of central France, a bizarre discovery in 1924 shattered conventional archaeology, the Glozal tablets. Unearthed by a farmer named Emile Fradin, these clay fragments bore inscriptions in a script that looked both ancient and oddly familiar, as if someone had scrambled the alphabet of multiple civilizations into a single, incomprehensible code. Some symbols resembled Phoenician letters, others mimicked early Norse runes, and a few eerily prefigured characters from modern shorthand. But the real shock. These tablets were found alongside artifacts spanning thousands of years: Neolithic tools, Bronze Age ceramics, even medieval glass, as if the site were a chronological dumping ground. The excavation site quickly became a battleground between believers who saw it as a lost library of prehistoric Europe and skeptics who dismissed it as an elaborate hoax. The controversy exploded when established archaeologists descended on Glozal. Some, like the renowned Salomon Reinach, declared the finds genuine, potentially rewriting the history of European literacy. Others accused the Fradin family of forgery, pointing to inconsistencies in the soil layers and the unusual freshness of the inscriptions. The debate turned vicious, with lawsuits, vandalism, and even accusations of planted evidence. At one point, the International Institute of Anthropology intervened, only to split into factions. The chaos became so notorious that the term Glozal affair entered academic slang as shorthand for archaeological scandal. What makes these tablets endure as a mystery isn't just the script, it's the lingering questions no critic or defender can fully answer. Radiocarbon dating in the 1970s yielded wildly mixed results, with some artifacts dating to 3000 BCE and others to the Middle Ages. The script itself defies categorization. Attempts to link it to known languages always hit dead ends. Even the hoax theory falters under scrutiny. Emile Fradin was a teenage farmer with no known artistic or linguistic training. How could he fabricate a script sophisticated enough to fool experts, then scatter it among genuinely ancient objects? The most haunting possibility is that Glozal represents a cultural crossroads lost to time. The region was a nexus of prehistoric trade routes where Celts, Romans, and earlier peoples mingled. Could these tablets be remnants of a pidgin script, a blend of writing systems used by traders? Or are they evidence of a forgotten cult preserving esoteric symbols across generations? Today, the artifacts sit in museum storage, their secrets intact. Unlike clearer hoaxes or accepted relics, Glozal occupies a gray zone, a puzzle that refuses to be solved, reminding us that sometimes history's most stubborn mysteries aren't hidden in tombs or temples, but buried in the backyards of ordinary places, waiting for the right eyes to see them. Buried under the roots of a Minnesota poplar tree in 1898, a farmer named Olof Oman made a discovery that would ignite a century of debate: a 200-pound slab of greywacke sandstone, its face carved with runic symbols telling a story straight out of a Viking saga. Known as the Kensington Runestone, its inscription claims to record a Norse expedition deep into North America in the year 1362, over a century before Columbus. The text describes a party of 8 Goths and 22 Norwegians retreating from a skirmish with indigenous people, leaving behind 10 men red with blood and dead. It's the kind of dramatic artifact that could rewrite history if it's real. At first glance, the runes look convincing. They match medieval Scandinavian script, and the language mirrors Old Norse, complete with dated phrases like Avum Ave Maria and From Vinland Far West. But the devil's in the details. Linguists pounced on glaring anachronisms, words like dead, death, spelled in a way that didn't emerge until centuries later, and grammatical quirks more typical of 19th century Swedish dialects than 14th century Norse. Even the runes themselves raised eyebrows. Some characters, like the dotted R, were rare in medieval inscriptions but common in modern runic handbooks, exactly the kind of mistake a self-taught carver might make. Then there's the context. Oman, a Swedish immigrant, lived in a community steeped in Norse pride. The late 1800s saw a surge of interest in Viking history, fueled by nationalist folklore and the recent discovery of authentic Norse sites in Newfoundland. Was the runestone a heartfelt hoax crafted to claim Viking glory for the New World Scandinavian settlers? Skeptics point to Oman's background, a farmer with no formal education but reportedly a keen interest in runes. A neighbor later claimed Oman admitted carving it as a prank, though that testimony remains hotly disputed. But hold on, the plot thickens. Recent geological studies complicate the dismissal. Mineral deposits in the rune grooves suggest centuries of weathering, inconsistent with a late 19th century carving. Then there's the eerie fact that the stone was found beneath a tree with roots grown around it, implying it lay there long before Oman's time. Even the inscription's mix of Danish and Swedish traits mirrors known linguistic blending in 14th century Norse expeditions. Could it be that the errors aren't mistakes at all, but evidence of an isolated group developing their own dialect? The broader question lingers: could Vikings have reached Minnesota? We know they made it to Newfoundland's Elance Oaks Meadows around the year 1000. Sagas mention expeditions further south, possibly as far as the Gulf of St. Lawrence, but the Great Lakes, that's a 2,000-mile trek inland through dense forests and river systems. No other Norse artifacts have been found along this hypothetical route. No iron nails, no ship rivets, nothing. Yet the absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence. If a small, ill-fated group ventured inland, their traces might be vanishingly rare. What makes the Kensington Runestone so compelling isn't just the academic debate, it's the human story beneath the runes. Whether it's a genuine cry from a doomed expedition or a proud immigrant's tribute to his heritage, the stone embodies our hunger to connect with the past. It sits now in a Minnesota museum, its runes still whispering two possibilities: a breathtaking rewrite of history, or one of the most elaborate historical capers of all time. And perhaps that duality is its real power, not as proof, but as a mirror reflecting our endless fascination with the explorers, real or imagined, who might have walked these lands before us. High in the mist-shrouded mountains of China's Bayan-Ha Range lies one of archaeology's strangest footnotes, a cache of stone discs known as the Dropa stones. Discovered in 1938 by a professor named Kai Pu Te, these palm-sized artifacts appear ordinary at first glance, until you notice the precise spiral grooves running from their centers to their edges, like microscopic vinyl records frozen in stone. But it wasn't the discs themselves that sparked global fascination. It was the wild claim that followed decades later, that these stones were physical evidence of an ancient extraterrestrial visitation, complete with encoded messages from stranded interstellar travelers. The story took a sci-fi turn in 1962 when a Russian magazine called Sputnik published an explosive article. According to their unnamed sources, hieroglyphs on the discs told of the Dropa people, tiny, large-headed beings whose spacecraft crashed in the mountains 12,000 years ago. Stranded on Earth, they allegedly interbred with locals, leaving these stone discs as their only legacy. The article even cited spectral analysis revealing unknown crystalline structures and metal traces not native to Earth. Overnight, the Dropa stones became UFO lore's holy grail, featured in books and documentaries as proof of ancient alien contact. There's just one problem: nearly every detail of that story crumbles under scrutiny. No credible scholar has ever examined the discs firsthand. The original 1938 expedition notes, if they existed, vanished during China's political upheavals. The hieroglyphs described in Sputnik resemble no known writing system, and subsequent investigations found the magazine's sources were likely fabricated. Even the name Dropa raises red flags. It's phonetically close to Derod Pa, a Tibetan term for nomadic herders, leading some to speculate the whole myth sprang from a mistranslation. So what are the discs if not alien artifacts? The likeliest explanation is both simpler and far more human. Similar grooved stones have been found across China, often near burial sites. Ethnographic studies suggest they may have been ritual objects used by the Qiang people, an ethnic group with ancient ties to the region. The grooves could represent spiritual pathways guiding souls to the afterlife, or symbolic sun rays in shamanic traditions. Others propose practical uses: fishing net weights, spinning tools, even early forms of currency. Without proper archaeological context, we may never know for certain. What's fascinating isn't just how the UFO myth overshadowed the disc's true origins, but why it resonated so deeply. The 1960s were the golden age of flying saucer mania, with cultures worldwide projecting contemporary anxieties onto ancient artifacts. The Dropa stones became a canvas for Cold War-era fantasies, proof that someone, somewhere, had already cracked the secrets of interstellar travel. In a way, the myth outshone reality because it answered a primal question: are we alone? Today, the original discs, if they still exist, are locked away in Chinese archives, inaccessible to researchers. The few known photographs show weathered stones that could have been carved by any Neolithic culture. Yet their legacy endures, a cautionary tale about how easily archaeology can warp into legend when we crave mysteries bigger than ourselves. The truth about the Dropa stones might be ordinary, but their journey from mountain cave to UFO lore reminds us that sometimes the most alien thing about the past is what we project onto it. In a dusty museum in Ica, Peru, a collection of stones tells a story that defies everything we know about history. Or does it? The Ica stones, etched with scenes of humans battling dinosaurs, performing surgeries with advanced tools, and charting celestial maps, seem like relics from a universe where timelines collided. Discovered in the 1960s by a local farmer, these andesite rocks quickly became a sensation, touted as proof that humans coexisted with dinosaurs or that an ancient civilization possessed knowledge far beyond their time. But the truth behind these carvings is far stranger than fiction, and reveals just how easily myth can masquerade as fact. The stone's journey from obscurity to infamy began with Dr. Javier Cabrera, a Peruvian physician who amassed over 15,000 of them, turning his home into a makeshift museum. According to Cabrera, the stones were buried in a secret cave and depicted the lost history of a pre-Inca civilization with technology rivaling our own. The images were undeniably striking: a man riding a triceratops like a horse, a figure using a telescope to study the stars, even detailed depictions of organ transplants. If genuine, they would upend paleontology, archaeology, and biology overnight. But cracks in the story appeared almost immediately. investigations revealed that the ancient stones were likely carved in the 1960s by local farmers using modern tools. One farmer, Basilio Ashuya, even admitted to creating them, confessing he'd aged the stones by baking them in cow dung and selling them to tourists. The symbols and styles were inconsistent with genuine pre-Columbian art, and the depictions of dinosaurs mirrored mid-century paleo art, complete with outdated postures like upright standing T. Rick says scientific testing confirmed the carvings were fresh, their grooves unweathered by centuries of exposure. Yet despite the overwhelming evidence of fabrication, the Ica stones refuse to fade into obscurity. They've become a cornerstone of young Earth creationist arguments, cited as evidence that dinosaurs and humans lived side by side, a claim that aligns with literal interpretations of religious texts but contradicts all fossil records. For believers, the stones symbolize a rebellion against mainstream science, a tangible artifact that challenges established timelines. Museums promoting creationist views still display replicas, and documentaries tout them as suppressed discoveries, ignoring the clear trail of their modern origins. What's fascinating isn't just the hoax itself, but why it endures. The Ica stones tap into a deep human desire to rewrite history, to find validation for alternative narratives. They thrive in the gap between proof and belief, where skepticism is dismissed as dogma and forgery is reframed as conspiracy. In an age of misinformation, their legacy serves as a cautionary tale, not just about faked artifacts, but about how easily we can weaponize the past to fit the stories we want to tell. Perhaps the real mystery of the Ica stones isn't who carved them, but why we keep pretending they're anything other than what they are, a mirror reflecting our own willingness to believe. In a dimly lit display case at the Cairo Museum rests an artifact that sparked debates sharper than the desert sun, the saqqara bird. Discovered in 1898 amid the funerary treasures of a 2,000-year-old Egyptian tomb, this sleek wooden figurine looks oddly out of place among the gods and sarcophagi. At first glance, it resembles a falcon mid-flight, its wings swept back in a graceful curve, but tilt your head and the proportions shift. The thick body, the angled wings, the vertical stabilizer at the tail, until suddenly you're not looking at a bird at all. You're looking at something that uncannily resembles a modern glider. The controversy erupted in the 1960s when a physician and amateur Egyptologist, Dr. Khalil Messiha, argued the saqqara bird wasn't just art but a scale model of a functional aircraft. Measurements revealed its wings perfectly matched the aerofoil cross-section of a plane's wing, generating lift when tested in wind tunnels. The tail's upright fin, absent in real birds but critical for aircraft stability, only fueled speculation. Could the ancient Egyptians have understood principles of aviation millennia before the Wright brothers? Archaeologists push back hard. They point to the bird's original context buried alongside other ritual objects, its surface once painted with falcon imagery linking it to the sky god Horus. Similar wooden bird figurines found across Egypt lack the glider features, suggesting this one's unique shape might be artistic license or damage misinterpreted as design. The counterargument is blunt. If this were a flight prototype, why is it alone? Where are the blueprints, the tools, the cultural memory of such a technological leap? Yet the fringe theories persist. Some propose the saqqara bird was a ceremonial throw glider, used in religious rites to symbolize the soul's flight to the afterlife. Others whisper of lost knowledge papyrus scrolls burned in the Library of Alexandria that might have held the secrets of early flight, the most poetic theory. That it's neither bird nor plane but a cultural Rorschach test. To the ancients it was a sacred symbol. To us, it's a mirror reflecting our own technological hubris, proof that we see the past not as it was but as we are. What makes this artifact endure isn't just its shape, but the questions it forces us to ask. How do we distinguish between an object's intended function and our modern projections? When does pattern recognition become pareidolia? seeing faces in clouds or jets in wood carvings. The Sakara bird won't surrender its secrets, but perhaps its real lesson is simpler. Sometimes the most fascinating artifacts aren't those that give answers, but those that keep us questioning. Diving into the sunken wreckage off the coast of the Greek island Antikythera in 1901, sponge divers recovered a corroded bronze lump that would become one of history's most astonishing puzzles. Initially dismissed as shipwreck debris, this unassuming artifact, later named the Antikythera mechanism, turned out to be a dazzlingly complex astronomical computer, its interlocking gears and cryptic inscriptions tracking the movements of planets, predicting eclipses, and even marking the dates of ancient Olympic Games. Created around 200 BCE, this intricate device was centuries ahead of its time, a mechanical universe in miniature, whispering secrets about how the ancient Greeks understood the cosmos. What makes the Antikythera mechanism so extraordinary isn't just its existence, but its sheer sophistication. Using 37 precisely calibrated bronze gears, some with teeth thinner than a millimeter, the mechanism modeled celestial mechanics with eerie accuracy. One dial tracked the 4-year cycle of the Olympiad, while another charted the irregular orbit of the moon, accounting for its elliptical path, an insight historians once believed wasn't discovered until the Renaissance. The front face featured concentric rings representing the Egyptian calendar, the zodiac, and the positions of the 5 known planets, all driven by a single handle turned like the winding key of a clock. This wasn't just a tool for astronomers, it was a philosopher's playground, a tangible expression of the Greek belief in a cosmos governed by mathematical harmony. Yet for all we've decoded, the mechanism still guards its deepest mysteries. X-ray scans in the early 2000s revealed hidden inscriptions, a user's manual etched into the bronze, describing how to interpret its celestial predictions. But large sections remain missing or corroded beyond recovery. Some researchers speculate the device might have included features we've yet to imagine, like mechanisms to simulate planetary retrograde motion, the apparent backward drift of planets in the night sky, or even early attempts to model the sun-centered theories Aristarchus of Samos proposed centuries before Copernicus. The precision of its gears suggests this wasn't a one-off experiment, but part of a broader tradition of ancient Greek engineering lost to time. The most haunting question isn't how the mechanism worked, but why we've found only one. Historical texts hint at similar devices. Cicero wrote of a bronze sphere built by Archimedes that replicated the heavens, yet no others have surfaced. Was this knowledge suppressed by later civilizations, or did it simply fade as the Greco-Roman world collapsed? The Antikythera mechanism forces us to reconsider the technological heights of antiquity, not as primitive steps toward modernity, but as a parallel path, one where science and art intertwine to create machines that might have reshaped history had they survived. Today, the mechanism sits in the National Archaeological Museum of Athens. Its fragmented gears a silent testament to the ingenuity of a culture that saw the universe as a puzzle to be solved. And as modern scientists painstakingly reconstruct its secrets, one truth becomes clear. Sometimes the most profound discoveries aren't those that answer our questions, but those that remind us how much we've yet to learn. In the quiet storerooms of the National Museum of Iraq, a cluster of unassuming clay jars hides a secret that could rewrite the history of technology. Known as the Baghdad batteries, these fist-sized vessels dating back to the Parthian period around 2,000 years ago contain an eerie assembly: a rolled copper cylinder, an iron rod, and traces of acidic residue like vinegar or wine. At first glance, they look like ordinary storage containers, but piece them together and they form something astonishing: a primitive electrochemical cell capable of generating a small electric current. The discovery, made in the 1930s, ignited a firestorm of debate. When filled with an electrolyte like citrus juice or grape extract, the jars produce around 1 volt of electricity, not enough to power a light bulb but sufficient for subtle applications. One compelling theory suggests they were used for electroplating, coating objects with thin layers of gold or silver. Ancient Mesopotamian artifacts show gilding so fine, modern experts struggle to replicate it without electricity. Could these jars have been the missing link, dipping jewelry or religious icons into a solution while the current bonded precious metals to their surfaces? But skeptics swing hard with counterarguments. The vessels lack wiring or terminals, and no contemporary texts mention electrical experiments. Critics propose they were simply storage for sacred scrolls, the iron rods acting as spindles to hold rolled parchment. After all, similar jars from the era stored herbs or perfumes, not currents. Even the electrolyte traces could be coincidental organic residues common in ancient containers. And if these were batteries, where are the attached artifacts or tools that would prove their use? Yet the mystery deepens when you consider the context. The Parthians were master innovators, bridging Greek and Persian scientific traditions. They built early prototypes of steam engines and perfected hydraulic systems. Is it so far-fetched that they stumbled upon basic galvanic principles? Experiments with replicas show the jars can indeed electroplate small objects over days of steady use. And then there's the curious absence of corrosion inside the copper cylinders, consistent with exposure to acids, exactly what you'd expect in a battery. What makes the Baghdad batteries so captivating isn't just the question of function, but what they reveal about how we interpret the past. To some, they're proof of ancient ingenuity, a spark of knowledge later extinguished. To others, they're a lesson in confirmation bias, where we project modern ideas onto objects meant for simpler purposes. Perhaps the truth lies in between, an accidental discovery, toyed with briefly, then forgotten when its potential faded into history's backdrop. These humble jars refuse to settle the debate. They sit in museum cases, their copper cylinders silent, their iron rods poised like unanswered questions. Whether they powered sacred rites or stored temple scrolls, one thing's certain: sometimes the smallest artifacts hold the most voltage, not in their current, but in their power to shock our assumptions about the past. High on the walls of Egypt's Temple of Seti in Abydos, a series of hieroglyphs have ignited one of the most persistent mysteries in archaeology, carvings that, at a glance, appear to depict modern helicopters, submarines, even futuristic aircraft. Known as the Abydos helicopter hieroglyphs, these peculiar symbols seem wildly out of place among the traditional depictions of gods and pharaohs. But before we leap to tales of ancient astronauts or time-traveling pharaohs, let's peel back the layers of this enigma to uncover a far more fascinating truth about how history sometimes overwrites itself. The key to understanding these carvings lies in a common practice of ancient Egyptian artisans, the palimpsest. Imagine a temple wall as a canvas where space was precious and stone was eternal. When Pharaoh Seti commissioned these walls in the 13th century BCE, his craftsmen carved elaborate tributes to his reign, scenes of conquest, offerings to Osiris, and the sacred barks of the gods. But years later, his successor, Ramses II, decided to update the narrative. Instead of erasing Seti's work entirely, Ramses' artisans plastered over portions and recarved new inscriptions. Over millennia, the plaster crumbled away, leaving behind a ghostly collision of two separate sets of hieroglyphs merged together. The result, a visual illusion where the overlapping strokes of Seti's original carvings and Ramses' revisions create entirely new, unintended shapes, including those infamous helicopters. Take a closer look and the illusion unravels. The helicopter is actually a composite of two hieroglyphs: Seti's original carving of a winged solar disk representing the god Horus, and Ramses' later addition of a ceremonial boat's prow. The submarine, a distorted overlap of a serpent and a staff. This phenomenon isn't unique to Abydos. Egyptologists have documented palimpsests across multiple sites, where political rebranding or shifting religious beliefs led to recycled stone. But what makes the Abydos carvings extraordinary is how perfectly the overlapping lines mimic modern machinery, playing tricks on our pattern-seeking brains. Of course, fringe theories refuse to fade. Some argue the carvings are proof of lost technology or extraterrestrial influence, pointing to similar, out-of-place artifacts worldwide. But here's the problem. If these were deliberate depictions of advanced machines, why are they isolated to this single temple? Why no supporting text, no ancillary artifacts, no cultural memory of such revolutionary inventions? The palimpsest theory, meanwhile, is backed by tangible evidence, tool marks showing sequential carving, residual plaster in the crevices, and the precise alignment of the disputed glyphs with known hieroglyphic phrases from both rulers' eras. The real magic of the Abydos carvings isn't in imagined helicopters, it's in what they reveal about how we see the past. Humans are wired to find familiar shapes in chaos, a trait that fuels both creativity and conspiracy. The same instinct that lets us spot faces in clouds or animals in constellations also convinces us that ancient artisans predicted the future. But the truth is even richer. These hieroglyphs are a testament to the fluidity of history, where politics, time, and human error collide to create accidental art. So the next time someone claims the Abydos helicopter is proof of ancient astronauts, remember, sometimes the most extraordinary mysteries aren't hidden messages from the future, just echoes of the past whispering through layers of stone and time. Imagine a map so precise, it shows coastlines no European could have known in 1513, the Piri Reis map, a fragment of a larger world chart drawn by the Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri Reis. What makes it extraordinary isn't just its age, but the startling accuracy of its details, particularly the rendering of South America's eastern coast, and most controversially, a landmass that some claim is Antarctica, centuries before its official discovery. But beneath the surface of this tantalizing mystery lies a far more complex story, one that blends meticulous sailor lore with audacious guesswork and a healthy dose of modern myth-making. The map's Antarctic connection hinges on a single, cryptic landmass tucked near the bottom of the parchment. Its jagged contours, some argue, mirror the ice-free coastline of Queen Maud Land under Antarctica's miles-thick glaciers, details supposedly impossible for 16th-century sailors to know. This claim birthed wild theories that Piri Reis had access to ancient knowledge from a lost civilization, or even extraterrestrial charts passed down through time. But here's the catch: the map doesn't label this land as Antarctica, nor does it depict the continent's full shape. Instead, it's likely a composite of sailor legends, half-explored shores, and educated guesses. Piri Reis himself left clues about his sources. In the map's margins, he scrawled notes explaining he'd synthesized over 20 older charts, some dating to Alexander the Great's era, along with contemporary Portuguese and Arab maps. Crucially, he included phantom islands and distorted landmasses common in medieval cartography, like the legendary Antalya. This wasn't a satellite survey, it was a patchwork of truths, myths, and creative interpolation. The Antarctic landmass, probably a misplotted stretch of South America's southern coast, blended with tales of Terra Australis, a speculative southern continent mapmakers had imagined since Ptolemy's time. Modern scrutiny supports this. Overlaying the Piri Reis map with modern projections reveals its true genius and its flaws. While Brazil's coastline is eerily precise, the Caribbean is warped beyond recognition. The map's distortions align with common Portolan charts of the era, which prioritized coastal details for navigation but fudged distances and orientations. As for Antarctica's ice-free coastline, geological evidence confirms the continent hasn't been glacier-free for millions of years, long before any human civilization could have mapped it. Yet the map's real value isn't in its supposed anomalies, but in what it reveals about Renaissance cartography's daring spirit. Piri Reis didn't need ancient aliens to create his masterpiece, just a keen ear for sailor yarns, a willingness to stitch together fragments of known worlds, and the audacity to sketch the unknown. His map is a testament to the messy, brilliant process of discovery, where half-truths and educated guesses could, by sheer luck, occasionally brush against reality. So the next time someone claims the Piri Reis map proves lost civilizations, remember, history's greatest mysteries often lie not in hidden truths, but in our own fascination with connecting dots that were never meant to line up. Sometimes a map is just a map, beautiful, flawed, and human. The Vinland map arrived with a bang in 1965, heralded as the crown jewel of cartographic history, a faded parchment purportedly drawn in the 15th century, showing the coast of North America labeled as Vinland over 500 years before Columbus set sail. If genuine, it would have been the earliest European depiction of the New World, corroborating Viking sagas that told of Leif Erikson's voyages to a land of wild grapes around the year 1000. But from the moment it surfaced, the map carried a whiff of suspicion, like a treasure too perfectly placed. Scientific scrutiny began with the ink. Early analyzers in the 1970s detected traces of anatase, a titanium dioxide compound not used in medieval pigments but common in 20th century inks. Defenders argued that anatase could occur naturally, perhaps from contamination. But the clincher came in 2018, when high-resolution spectroscopy revealed the ink's titanium was crystalline, a form only achievable through modern industrial processes. Medieval scribes used iron gall ink, which darkens over time into deep browns. The Vinland map's lines, however, remained stubbornly black, their chemical fingerprint screaming 20th century. Then there's the parchment itself. Carbon dating placed it between 1420 and 1440, seemingly authentic. But here's the twist: forgers often reuse ancient materials. The map's text, copied from genuine medieval sources, contained subtle errors, a telltale sign of someone working backward from historical records rather than contemporary knowledge. The Latin inscription describing Vinland as an island, for example, contradicts Norse sagas that described it as a coastal region. Even the wormholes matched a 15th century book's binding, suggesting the parchment was salvaged and repurposed. Perhaps the most damning evidence lies in the map's silence. If this knowledge existed in medieval Europe, why is there no mention in any other surviving document? Why no ship logs, no diplomatic correspondence, no echoes in the meticulous records of Venetian or Catalan mapmakers? The Viking sagas were preserved in Icelandic manuscripts, but the Vinland map's creators seemingly plucked details from 20th century translations, not medieval originals. The map's supporters, many swayed by nationalist pride or the romance of discovery, cling to anomalies. They point to faint lines under the ink, suggesting a medieval draft erased and overwritten. But forensic analysis shows these are mere indentations from folding, not earlier sketches. The bitter truth: the Vinland map is a masterful fake, a mid-century concoction blending real history with artistic license, designed to tantalize just enough to fool the hopeful. What makes this forgery fascinating isn't the deception itself, but why it worked so well. We wanted it to be real. It fit our narrative of intrepid Vikings charting unknown shores, a prelude to the age of exploration. The map's real lesson isn't about cartography, it's about how easily we confuse what we wish was true with what the evidence actually says. And in that sense, the Vinland map is genuine after all, a perfect reflection of our own longing to rewrite history. Among the fragile parchment scrolls discovered near the Dead Sea in the mid-20th century, one stands apart not for its religious wisdom or poetic verses, but for what it promises: unimaginable wealth. The copper scroll, unlike its more famous counterparts, isn't written on leather or papyrus. Instead, it's etched into thin sheets of copper, as if the authors feared time itself would erase their message. Found in 1952 in Cave 3 at Qumran, This corroded relic contains 64 cryptic entries listing vast quantities of gold, silver, and sacred artifacts hidden in locations scattered across the Judean wilderness. But here's the twist that's baffled scholars for decades. Despite countless expeditions armed with picks and ground-penetrating radar, not a single ingot or coin from this treasure has ever been recovered. The scroll's contents read like a maddening riddle. Entry after entry describes precise but oblique hiding spots. In the cistern under the stairway, 9 cubits to the left, or beneath the black stone at the entrance of the tomb of Zadok. The measurements are exact, the landmarks specific, yet every attempt to follow these directions leads nowhere. Part of the problem is the landscape itself. 2,000 years of erosion, earthquakes, and human activity have altered the terrain beyond recognition. The black stone or solitary oak referenced in the text might have crumbled to dust centuries ago. Then there's the question of authenticity. Could the copper scroll be an ancient hoax? Some scholars argue it's a work of fiction, a symbolic inventory of temple treasures lost during the Roman destruction of Jerusalem in 70 CE, never meant to be taken literally. Others propose it's a genuine treasure map, but the loot was looted long ago, perhaps by Roman soldiers who tortured locals for its location, or by Bedouin tribes who stumbled upon the caches over the centuries. The most tantalizing theory that the treasure was never hidden at all. The scroll's language diverges sharply from the other Dead Sea Scrolls, lacking their religious tone. Instead, it's bureaucratic, almost clinical. Could this be a record of future deposits, a plan to safeguard wealth that was intercepted or abandoned before completion? The copper itself is a clue. Unlike organic scrolls meant to preserve knowledge, copper was chosen for durability. This wasn't a text for study, it was a record meant to survive war and time. Modern technology keeps the hunt alive. Researchers using multispectral imaging have revealed faded letters beneath the corrosion, hinting at even more hidden entries. Archaeologists cross-reference the scroll's descriptions with satellite maps and ancient land deeds, hoping to match a single clue to a tangible site. Meanwhile, treasure hunters still comb the desert, driven by the oldest human obsession, the belief that somewhere just beneath the sand lies a fortune waiting to be claimed. The copper scroll's true legacy isn't gold or silver, it's the enduring mystery. Whether fact or fantasy, it captures a moment when people risked everything to protect what they valued most. And until someone unearths so much as a single shekel from its list, the scroll remains the ultimate unclaimed inheritance, a whisper of riches that might still be out there, or might never have existed at all. From the spiraling riddles of the Phaistos Disc to the high-tech whispers of the Baghdad batteries, these 30 ancient markings remind us that history is never as settled as it seems. Each artifact we've explored today is more than just an object, it's a conversation starter, a crack in the tidy timeline we've constructed for human civilization. Some might be hoaxes, others misunderstood relics, but all of them challenge us to question what we think we know. What makes these enigmas so enduring isn't just their age, it's the way they dance between worlds. The Saqqara bird could be a ritual object or a model of forgotten flight. The Ica stones might be modern fakes or fragments of an alternate past. Even when evidence tilts toward one explanation, there's always that tantalizing sliver of doubt. After all, absence of proof isn't proof of absence. How many more secrets have been lost to time, crumbling into dust before we could even think to look for them? This is the real magic of archaeology, not just uncovering answers, but learning to sit with the questions. Every unexplained symbol, every contested artifact is an invitation to keep digging. Maybe you'll be the one to finally crack the Rohonc Codex's cipher or prove once, and for all whether the Fuente Magna Bowl's cuneiform is real. The best theories often start as wild hunches, so don't be afraid to chase down leads that others dismiss. If these mysteries ignited your curiosity, you're in good company. Hit that subscribe button to join us for more deep dives into history's shadowy corners. We've got plenty of unsolved enigmas lined up, from vanished civilizations to cryptic manuscripts that still defy translation. And drop your favorite theory in the comments. Do you think the Dendera lights depict ancient tech, or is there a deeper symbolic meaning? Could the Kensington Runestone be genuine, or was it an immigrant's love letter to his heritage? The most fascinating part of these puzzles isn't just solving them, it's hearing how they resonate with fellow seekers, because in the end, history isn't a static record. It's a living, breathing debate reshaped with every new discovery, and somewhere out there, buried in a cave or hidden in plain sight, the next great mystery is waiting to rewrite the story all over again.